Hello everyone, my name is Xiaodong Yue. I'm a professor at the Captain Normal University and welcome to my course on skills for writing and publishing academic papers in English. Today's topic is how to write English book and book chapter. Before we start our talk, let's see the vocabulary or the words for this talk. I'll do you a favor. Please read after me to familiarize your ear for the terms, for the words, for the vocabulary I'll mention in this talk. Are you ready? Read after me. Manuscript. Manuscript. Rejection. Rejection. Identify. Identify. Falsification. Falsification. Fabrication. Fabrication. Multiple submissions. Multiple submissions. Professional. Professional. Colleague. Colleague. Feedback. Feedback. Revise. Revise. Revision. Revision. Reviewer. Reviewer. Disagreement. Disagreement. Misinterpretation. Misinterpretation. Comment. Comment. Recommend. Recommend. Target journal. Target journal. Publishing cycle. Publishing cycle. Editor. Editor. Cover letter. Cover letter. Acknowledgement. Acknowledgement. Publish. Publish. Submit. Submit. Shortcoming. Shortcoming. Sentence clumsiness. Sentence clumsiness. Weird idiom. Weird idiom. Sentence structure. Sentence structure. Peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed. Reader-driven. Reader-driven. Publisher-reviewed. Publisher-reviewed. Market-driven. Market-driven. Theme-based. Theme-based. Topic-based. Topic-based. Audience. Audience. Publicize. Publicize. Guarantee. Guarantee. Craft. Craft. Draft. Draft. Obligation. Obligation. Publisher. Publisher. Prospective. Prospective. Consultancy. Consultancy. Differentiate. Differentiate. Macro level. Macro level. Meso level. Meso level. Micro level. Macro level. Restricted. Restricted. Copy edit. Copy edit. Semantic writing. Semantic writing. Collaborative writing. Collaborative writing. Joint venture. Joint venture. Now, I have these questions for you to think before you listen to my talk. First, what is the difference between a research article, a book chapter, and a book? Second, what are the tips for writing a book proposal? And thirdly, what are the tips for writing a book? Fourthly, what are the tips for writing a book chapter? So keep these 4 questions in mind. Let's start today's lecture. First of all, what is the difference between an article, a book, and a book chapter? Generally speaking, an academic research article is usually an empirical study involving some quantitative and/or qualitative data a researcher collected to address a particular research question in a field of study. We've said enough about what a research article is. Next, what is an academic book? An academic book is generally a collection of writings a researcher produced that address a special theme or topic in the field of study. It could be a collection of chapters written entirely by you, or it could be written by a group of authors. And next, what is an academic book chapter? An academic book chapter is typically a piece of writing that summarizes a researcher's past research or viewpoints in a field of study. So it is focused on one topic, a particular area of study. Now I'll give you an example of a journal article that I published before. Notice this was published in 1999, last century. And here are 4 books that I published in the past. The one on the left is the sole author. That means I'm the only author. The rest is what I collaborated with my colleague, Jackie. And here is an example of a chapter I wrote together with another colleague, not from China, from overseas. And it is about the prevalence estimates and astrology models of internet addiction. It's with Kimberly Young, who is an expert in the field. Having said all this, let's look at specifically the differences between articles and books. For articles, features for articles is peer-reviewed, readership-driven, topic-based, narrower audience, new findings needed, and pay for publication in many cases. Now, what about the features for books? It is publisher-reviewed, market-driven, theme-based, broader audience, information available or already available, and get paid for publication. So here are the differences between research articles and the books, and you keep this in mind. And writing a book is actually not that difficult as you imagine. Now, talking about books, let's see what's the difference between a book and a book chapter. Features for a book is individual work because you have to finish work entirely on your own. Okay? And it's theme-based, like for humor or creativity, or by proposal. You don't write a book and you submit to a publisher. You have to get a publisher to agree to publish a book via a proposal, and it's typically harder to write. What about the features for book chapters? First of all, it's a group project. It's not your own project. It's working together. And it's issue-based, or it could be topic-based. You write on 1 or 2 topics. Okay? And it's by invitation. So you're invited to contribute, and you're invited to contribute a chapter to this particular book. And it is relatively easy to write because you only write 1 chapter, not the whole of it. So having said all of this, let's see the facts about writing a book chapter. As a book chapter is not subject to peer review, it is much easier to write it than to write an academic journal article. And also, as a book chapter is usually written by invitation, it is much easier to get it published than to publish a journal article. And also, as a book chapter does not usually have strict word limit or other restrictions, it gives the writer a lot of flexibility in deciding what to address. And also, as a book chapter is topic-based, it gives the writer a lot of freedom in deciding what to write. So you got it? You have a lot more flexibility and a freedom in writing a book chapter than writing a journal article. In short, our take-home message is, writing a book chapter is a great way to publicize your ideas, and it is guaranteed for publication. Keep this in mind. Now, it's so important to write a book or book chapter. Let's see, what is a book proposal that you want to make a big deal out of your academic works? Now, to write a book, one needs to submit a formal proposal to a publisher for consideration, incorporating the following information. Outline for the content of the proposed book, a rationale of publication for academic purposes and commercial values, a schedule for completing the proposed book, a business plan for promoting the book in the market, a description of how to appeal to diverse groups of readers. And of course, there could be other factors. Remember, the book proposal is subject to book publisher, a reviewer's assessment and approval before a formal book contract can be signed and you can start your grand project of writing your book. Now, you want to know what are the elements in a book proposal? You need to have a title of the proposed book, and also you want to provide the reasons for publishing the book, proposed word length, and amount of illustrations for the book. And also, you need to have intended completion dates, the content of the book, list of chapters, an indication of a content of each chapter. And you have a brief credentials of the authors or the author yourself. And you have a level of presentation. And you have a targeted readership and a market for the book. And finally, you want to have a comparison with competing books in the field. All of this information needs to be provided for the publisher's judgment and consideration. Now, I give you an example of a book proposal, which I had before. And here is another example of a reviewer's comments. And you can see it says, I agree that there is a real need for this book. The topic of humor is of wide interest worldwide. And the fact that there has been so little published to date in book form on humor and Chinese culture makes this title of great value. I don't have to read the rest, but this is how a reviewer's comments look like. And finally, I got my book contract. You can see, this is a book contract that I got. Having said all of this, what are the tips for writing a book proposal? First, do include a table of content of the proposed book, how many chapters, what each chapter addresses, and what are themes and topics within these chapters. And second, do give a brief description of each chapter. You have to follow the instructions of the publisher. It could be 100 words or 200 words. It depends. Third, do provide information about the market value of the book. Because it's not like you publish your article. This book needs to be sold out. So for publisher, the book that he has in mind is textbooks, because textbooks will be sold by a huge amount. And you have to prove that your proposed book is of great market value. And fourth, to justify the reasons why people will buy this book. You may say this is the first book, or this book have most recent findings compared with previous books that were published. And 5, do check obligations of the authors for the book on what you need to do. You have to keep in mind. And 6, do seek assistance from the book publisher. They will give you all the support once you've started your project. It's a joint venture or joint project. Okay, I hope you'll write your book proposal tomorrow, or you will contact publishers to write your book proposal. Now here I give you an example of my book. It's called Humor and Chinese Culture, a Psychological Perspective. Now, what credits this book has? It's the first English book of Chinese humor from a psychological perspective, and it's good for cross-cultural studies of Chinese humor, and it's good for scholars and students of interest in humor around the world, and it's good for library purchase, and it's good for courses to be taught on humor. And I also said I would do the self-promotion for the book, and this is why the book was and I don't have to pay a single dime for the book. I'm expecting the royalties from the book. Okay, having said all of this, what else we need to know? Book publishers will routinely ask prospective authors for information about competing titles and competitiveness in the market. So you have to be prepared to address these questions to distinguish your proposed book from other similar books. An author needs to take this into consideration while writing your book proposal. And also, I want you to keep in mind that publishers usually provide writers with a free consultancy service. And it's a great opportunity to learn from the experience. They will help you, particularly for copy editing. But I want to talk about giving a great title. This is the book that I really take pride. The book is a Chinese one, but it's been sold for 1 million copies. The Chinese name for the book is called Feeling on Top of the World, and it was published in 1997, last century, and it's still on sale. I'm not here boasting my own book. I'm just telling you, this is how great title matters. This is a book about counseling. For counseling is to enable a client to feel on top of the world. All right, let's continue to explore what you need to keep in mind. Another thing you need to keep in mind is to ask for help, because many first-time authors find it hard to write book proposals. This is perfectly understandable, as many might never seen a book proposal before. If so, or if this is the case, you may do 2 things to help out. One is to ask for a publisher to give you sample book proposals for your references. And the other is to ask around any friend or colleagues who have written book proposals before. In such a way, you will find a shortcut to relieve your anxiety as well as to resolve your present problem. And I wish you good luck.